Imagine handing over your house, your actual house, the one you live in, for a single flower bulb. Not a garden, not an estate. One bulb, dormant, ugly, indistinguishable from an onion. In the Netherlands in the 1630s, something very close to that happened, and we have the receipt. The historian Anne Goldger, who went through the surviving Dutch records, found the highest documented price paid for a single tulip bulb was 5,000 guilders in 1637. 5,000 guilders was the going rate for a nice house, so the headline is true. A flower really did cost a house. But almost everything you have been told about what happened next is not true, and the reason that matters has very little to do with tulips and quite a lot to do with you. Tulips were not Dutch. They arrived in Europe from the Ottoman Empire, and the Dutch fell for them completely. The timing is the whole point. This was the Dutch Golden Age, when the Netherlands was arguably the richest place on earth, a small country with an enormous merchant fleet and an entirely new problem. A large number of people had suddenly become wealthy without having inherited anything, and money that knew needs somewhere to announce itself. A rare tulip did that beautifully. It was a living luxury good. It could not be counterfeited, it could not be bought at any price by just anyone, and it died if you were careless with it, which made owning one a statement about both your wealth and your taste. That is the setup. New money, a limited supply of something beautiful, and a society that had agreed the beautiful thing signaled status. Nothing about that is irrational yet. The irrationality needed one more ingredient. And it came from biology. The most prized tulips were not the plain ones. They were the ones with dramatic flame-like streaks of color running through the petals as though someone had painted them. The most famous of all was the Semper Augustus, white, shot through with crimson flares. Collectors lost their minds over it, and here's the irony nobody in Holland could possibly have known at the time. Those patterns were a symptom. They were caused by a virus infecting the bulb carried by aphids, which broke the flower's color into streaks. The most valuable flowers in Europe were the diseased ones, and because the virus also weakened the plant, infected bulbs reproduced poorly and unpredictably. You could not simply grow more Semper Augustus to meet demand, so the supply of the most desirable object in the country was capped by a disease nobody understood, while demand rose with every new fortune made at sea. Prices climbed. That is still not a bubble. This is where it becomes one. A market turns into a bubble at a specific, identifiable moment, and it is not when prices get high. It is when the buyers stop wanting the thing. As long as people were buying tulips to plant them, to look at them, to be seen owning them, the price meant something. It measured desire for an object. The turn comes when people start buying bulbs they have no intention of ever planting, purely because they expect to sell them on to somebody else for more. At that point, the flower is irrelevant. It could be anything. What is being traded is not a tulip, it is a position in a queue, and the only thing anyone is really buying is the belief that another person will pay more tomorrow. Every bubble in history runs on that same substitution. The asset changes, the substitution never does. And once it happened in Holland, the trading got strange in a way that should sound extremely familiar. Most of this trading happened in taverns over drinks in winter, and winter matters because in winter the bulbs were in the ground, buried, invisible. Nobody in the room could see the thing being bought, verify its condition, or in many cases confirm it existed at all. So what changed hands was paper, a contract, a promise to deliver a specific bulb when it was lifted in the summer. Buyers who never intended to take delivery sold those contracts on to other buyers who also never intended to take delivery. The Dutch, who were not fools and knew exactly what they were doing, had a name for it. They called it windhandel. The wind trade. Sit with that for a second. 400 years ago, in a bar in the dark, people invented future speculation on an asset they could not see and named it after nothing at all. They were not confused about what they were doing. That is the part the myth always gets wrong. It ended in February 1637, and the ending is remarkable for how completely undramatic it was. At a routine bulb auction, the buyers did not show up. No scandal, no war, no failed harvest, no government decree, no cause that anyone at the time thought worth writing down. The bids simply were not there. And because the entire structure rested on the assumption that somebody would always bid, its removal collapsed the whole thing within days. Everyone was suddenly holding contracts obliging them to buy flowers at prices no living person would now pay. The greater fool, the one every speculator is quietly relying on, had run out. Prices fell to almost nothing. And here the story you know takes over: the ruined merchants, the bankruptcies, the men throwing themselves into the canals. Which brings us to the honest part, and it is the reason this video exists. Anne Goldger spent years in the Dutch archives looking for the catastrophe. She could not find it. Across all the surviving records, she identified fewer than 400 people who were definitely involved in the trade at all. Not 400,000, 400. And they were merchants, artisans, and professionals, not peasants, not laborers, not the urban poor. The famous image of weavers selling their looms to chase tulips has no documentary basis whatsoever. Nor does the wave of suicides. So where did the story come from? Overwhelmingly from one book, a Scottish author named Charles Mackay, writing in 1841, more than 200 years after the event. Mackay was not reporting, he was moralizing, drawing on satirical pamphlets that had themselves been written to warn people against greed. The tulip crash was real. The national ruin was a sermon that grew in the retelling, and we have been quoting the sermon ever since. It is worth asking why the exaggerated version won so completely, because the answer is not that people are careless with history. It is that the exaggerated version is more useful. A story in which an entire nation goes mad over a flower and is destroyed for it does a job. It lets everybody afterwards feel sensible by comparison. It turns a bubble into a freak event, something that happened to those people back then because they were foolish in a way we are not. That is enormously comforting, and it is precisely why it is dangerous. If Tulip Mania was a nation losing its mind, you are safe because your nation has not lost its mind. If Tulip Mania was a few hundred well-informed professionals making an entirely rational bet that someone else would pay more, which is what the records actually show, then you are not safe at all, because that is not madness. That is just Tuesday in every market forever. So strip the legend away and look at what is left, because what is left is a checklist. A new asset most people do not fully understand. A story explaining why the old rules do not apply to it. Buyers who purchase with no intention of ever using the thing. A price that has come unhooked from any practical use it might have. Trading in contracts rather than the object itself. And a market that depends absolutely on a continuous supply of people willing to pay more than the last one. Run that checklist against the railway boom, against dot-com stocks, against American housing in 2008, against whichever coin was inevitable last year. The asset is different every time, and the checklist never changes because the checklist is not describing an asset. It is describing us. Same software, new hardware, roughly once a generation. Come back to the bulb, dormant, ugly, worth a house. The reason that image has survived 400 years is not that it is absurd, it is that it is clarifying. It is the cleanest picture anyone has ever taken of the moment a price stops being about a thing and starts being about the next person's greed. The flower did nothing. It sat in the ground through the entire mania, unaware, growing at its own pace, and came up in the spring exactly as valuable as a flower has ever been. Everything else in the story happened in people's heads, in taverns, in the dark, about an object nobody could see. And the honest ending is not that they were fools and we are wiser. Fewer than 400 of them were involved. They knew exactly what they were trading, and they had a word for it. We are almost certainly doing the same thing somewhere right now. The only real question is what we are calling the tulip this time. The correction in this video is not ours. It comes from Anne Goldgar's archival work, and the numbers we quoted, fewer than 400 documented participants, 5,000 guilders as the highest recorded price, are hers. Where the popular story and the records disagree, we went with the records. We have also left out the figures you will see quoted everywhere for what a bulb was worth in loaves of bread or oxen or years of wages. Those come from the moralizing pamphlets, not the receipts.